Okay, we'll start with the first question. I will write it down. I don't know if you have the chat open.
Right. Well, I probably explained a little bit of that in our pre-discussion, but so the Spirit of Yorkshire was started distilling in 2016 in May, correct? Prior to that, it took us 3 years to get to a point where we felt it was a feasible thing to do. I mean, Yorkshire as a county is the biggest county in England. We have 5.5 million people living in Yorkshire, which is more than all of Scotland. So you know they've got 300 odd distilleries, and we've only got one. So so that's one point. We wanted to be groundbreaking in Yorkshire, but also we have some of the best malt and barley growing land and country right under our feet. And as being farmers, you know, we're in an ideal position to use that barley to go straight into our whiskey and beer. So did we have a clear defined project in mind? Yes, it was to use that barley to make a totally traceable and if you like, renewable products. You know, we because we're in control of those ingredients. So that was the clear project. In terms of what we wanted to make, we wanted to make something that was accessible to most people. So we didn't want to replicate Scotch. We wanted to have our own defined product. So you can see by the bottle shape and style, it's very much cleaner. It's very much more modern than you would expect a Scotch to be. After saying that, and this is a nice little strapline, if you like, we respect tradition, but we also do things our own way. So we decided we wanted the best equipment we could possibly get, and that has to be Scottish stills. So we've got 2 Forsyth stills, pot stills, which we did actually look around the rest of Europe to try and find somebody who could manufacture whiskey stills, and we just kept coming back to Forsyths and kept coming back to them and saying, well, we've investigated the market, but we want the best. And who better than the Scottish still maker to make whiskey stills? So we did have a very defined project, and it was to make the best possible accessible whiskey we could, to try and bring people into the whiskey industry and start drinking a whiskey who perhaps have never drunk whiskey before. Yes. So we weren't tailoring it just to whiskey drinkers. We wanted to open the market up and try and be a little bit different. So that was our project in mind when we first started.
But as you said before, why, in your opinion, you are the first and only distillery in Yorkshire?
I think we've got, and I think it's probably led by tradition, really. When you talk whiskey, the first thing you think about is Scotch.
Yes, of course.
The second thing you think about is Irish, and then possibly America. So there were very defined production areas. And I think that to break new ground, for example, if you're only one of a handful of English distilleries, you don't get shelf space. You know, you don't have a category. You don't have anywhere to go. You just get chucked into or put into the rest of the world category, which is not great, really.
No.
You know, so I think to break new ground like that is a big thing. I also think it doesn't matter where you are in the world. To set a distillery up, you need a lot of money, and you need a lot of backing, and you need to be very confident you can produce something that's going to sell. And I think those barriers to entry are very big. So regardless of us being in England or anywhere in the world, setting up from scratch is a very difficult thing to do. And that's probably why it's never been done in Yorkshire, and there's only a handful of people in England doing it. So there will be more followers, there will be more of us, but I think it will be not like the gin market, where you can just effectively set up tomorrow and have bottles to sell the day after.
Yes, of course.
That's why the route to entry is difficult. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, it is. Okay, this brings me to the second question, which actually it's
Yeah.
actually connected to what we said before. So you can partially you already answered that.
Isn't it funny? We've always answered that, right? Absolutely fine. So yeah, I mean, first of all, it is really important that your land is suitable to grow barley and malting barley in particular. So I've grown barley and bought and sold barley for 30 years. So I know this firsthand. So what you need to make to grow good barley is very light land, not heavy, not clay land, not that just will not produce a barley that is suitable for malting. So first of all, the land has to be the correct type, and the Yorkshire Wolds are one of the best areas in England to make a good crop of malting barley. So that's the first place. But after saying that, as I explained before, that you have no control over the weather. So from one season to the next season, it could be the same farmer, the same field, the same variety of barley. You could have a really good crop in 2019 and a very poor crop in 2020. And that's all down to the uncontrollable weather. So you can do as much as you possibly can to grow that crop exactly the same way. But if you have rain at harvest, you've got rain at harvest. Yeah. So
yes, of course.
Yeah. So territory and terroir, I think, is important. Well, territory or land type is very important, but the whole situation of terroir, I think, is overstated and very much not a flavour driver. There are other things that drive flavour, not how you grow the crop.
Yes, probably it's more important for what you said before to establish, since you have Scotch, you have Irish whiskey, and then you have English whiskey, maybe English whiskey. Because if you go to shops online now, someone has started to have a category English whiskey. But it's really not really. But if you point to go, okay, English is quite vast, you know, so you could start saying, okay, we have London whiskey, which we have many of London whiskies, and then you may have Yorkshire whiskey, and you know, something like in Scotland. I mean, Campbelltown, Islay, and stuff. The future. So probably the territory is important in this way as an identity for what you do.
I think so, but I also think as well that, as I explained, everybody in England is doing different things, that's the exciting thing about English whiskey. You know, you would never be able to define English whiskey by its taste. You have to define English whiskey by the producer and how they've gone about making their whiskey. So, you know, even in Scotland now, when we've talked about Campbelltown, Speyside, all they are is sort of historic types, if you like. So Speyside being lighter, but now, because of the way the community works and where we get our barley from and how we produce things, those lines are blurred. You know, there isn't now a definitive Speyside style. Exactly. So yeah, like England, every distillery will produce something different, and that's the beauty of it.
Yes, indeed. Now this brings me to the other question, which partially you already answered to it, actually, as usual.
Yeah, I think that my main line here is that we do respect the tradition of how you make whiskey, and we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. You know, we wanted to embrace that technology, that experience, that knowledge. And we employed a guy called Dr. Jim Swan, who, if you're in whiskey, you'll know Dr. Jim Swan.
Kind of, yes.
So he obviously has had massive influence on introducing new countries and new producers to the art of making a great single malt whiskey. So we had Jim with us from the start. And he taught us all those things that we didn't know, and even down to not just the distillation and fermentation side and the types of yeast to use, but also the maturation and wood policy all the way through. But also Jim was not such a traditionalist that he would just say, this is how you do it, and that's it. He was very open to experiment. And we, as a business, wanted to be respectful to the tradition, but also do our own thing. So we ended up with a still configuration which is very unique. And in fact, I don't think anybody else has it, where we've got a rectifying column sitting alongside our spirit still. So we're the only business, I believe, that can make two styles of new make spirit. So we can make our more traditional pot-based, oily, heavier new make spirit by not using the rectifying column. And then for 6 months of the year, we turn the rectifying column on in tandem, and we make our lighter, sort of cleaner spirit, and we cask those separately. So we have 6 months production of a more of a traditional oily new make, and 6 months with a lighter, which gives us another card to play when we bring them back together. So although we, as I say, we respect the full tradition of how you make whiskey and pot stills in Scotland, we've added this extra rectifying column, which gives us much more flexibility, and actually, I think, brings our product to maturity a little bit quicker, because the cask has to work a little less hard, if you like, to get to where we want to go. So I would say that Jim's been a massive influence, and Scotland's been a massive influence, but we also want to make our own mark, and we want to be looking to do something slightly differently.
But are you going ever to do a peated malt or not?
Yeah, so one relationship we have locally is, because I explained this area is a really good malting barley area, we have two of the biggest malting companies with factories very close to us. So we've got a malting plant just at 10 miles away, and what they're able to do for us is they ring fence our malt, our barley, and bring it back to us. So we know it's 100% from our farm, but they've just built a peating plant. So this is the only peating plant outside of Scotland. So it's a slightly different process, but we can still ring fence our barley. So that's been commissioned, or it's now actually working, I think from last month. So we're looking for next season to have our own peated barley, and we will be doing a peated malt in the future, yeah.
Let's go with another question. There you go.
Okay, yeah. So all of the distillery project series, which I've actually got sitting in, behind the scenes here, so that was the first one. Okay. So as a business, because of this traceability and this fact that we didn't want to put anything in a bottle that we hadn't grown on the farm, a lot of distilleries, whiskey distilleries, go into gin, and they buy the NGS in, the spirit in, and they distill that and flavour it, and off it goes. Now that's good to bring the money in the first 3-4 years when you don't have whiskey. The problem we have with that is that would be against our field to bottle process. So we would be bringing in somebody else's product, which isn't our ethos at all. So we decided we weren't going to do white spirits in any form. As you're aware, our stills would never make a white spirit high enough to be gin. So you need a big column still to do that, and that's not what we do. So and this is one of the reasons we put the little rectifying column in, is so we could get a spirit that would mature quicker, and potentially cited as a white spirit. But we felt that we backed away from that because people didn't understand what it was. You know, and you'd never sell a lot of bottles of new make spirit, to be honest. It's not very pleasant.
Yeah, for example, Bimber is pointing a lot to the new make. Yeah, which is, I know, but people seems to love that, but probably because nobody does it. Because when they come out with the new make spirits, peated new make spirits, people go crazy because probably they never tried it. Something completely new. Actually, as I said, it's not that, okay, you can try it, you can sip it. Yes, okay, it's something different, but you don't drink an entire bottle.
No, it's not an experiment. It's an experiment to see what the distillery is doing, that's all. And it'll never become a mainstream product.
Exactly.
And to an extent, if in the wrong hands with somebody who doesn't understand what they're trying, it could actually be negative. You could actually think, well, what are they making here? It's
yes,
not good.
Absolutely, yes.
So I think it's very dangerous ground unless you're a really experienced whiskey drinker and you understand what new make is. So we decided not to do that. So we put it into the casks, and we decided we would wait for 3.5 years. But what we also did was we do tours, a lot of tours here, and as part of the tour, you get a little sample of the maturing product to try. And as time was going on, excuse me, their feedback was excellent. They were going, "This is superb. Why can we not buy it?" And we kept saying to them, "Because it's not whiskey. You can't buy it. It's not whiskey." But actually, we sat down and thought, well, if it's that good, we know it's good. If our customers are telling us it's good, why don't we try and bottle it and just sell a few bottles? And we can't call it whiskey. So what we're going to call it? So we called it maturing malt. Okay. And you can see there, so at the bottom. So it says exactly what it is. It's maturing malt. It's not whiskey. And the first one came out, and to be honest with you, we could have sold it 10 times over. It was just, it went so quick. So we did a range of them in those first sort of 2 years after the first year, and ended up with projects 1 to 6, which totaled over 10,000 bottles, and all of them are now gone. So we were only really able to do that because of the column distiller, which was lighter, and it didn't have the new make or the newness as readily available, if you like. It was not hiding it just wasn't there. So we could do that and actually not damage our reputation. So if you like, that is just history. We will never do maturing malt products again because now we have whiskey. But it was a really interesting experiment. And do you ever get the Whiskey Bible from Jim Murray?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So number 3, that one, it's called 95 out of 100 for a product that's not whiskey. So he gave that 95, and his comments were, "This is ridiculously tasty." So so we feel like we were concerned about going early, but we also knew that we had a great product, and there were reasons why it was great. And Jim Murray obviously backed us up with that when he tasted it. So that's the history of the maturing malt range.
Yes. But for example, I think when we are talking, I was thinking, you think that drinkers have changed in years? I mean, something like that, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, probably didn't exist, and nobody would ever thought about doing something like that. But now they do. But what do you think changed? I mean, in a way that the drinkers they have more information, they're more prepared, or something else? What changed actually?
Well, I think the audience is more discerning, which means they're more interested in production. They're more interested in the stories of how you actually make a product. So they're asking the right questions, and they're more open to trying new things. And I think if you think of whiskey, or particularly Scotch, 20 years ago, it was always considered an old man's drink in England anyway. I don't know if it was the same in Italy.
Everywhere, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. And I think actually gin's been a very positive effect on people's view of spirits generally, because people are willing to try new things, new flavors, and are really excited about how we differentiate, how we are different to the norm. So I think it's been led by the consumer, and it's allowed people like us to experiment. And I think also that Scotch and the Scotch production is very, very restrictive, which the SWA have a set of rules, and if you break them, you're in trouble. The problem with that is it might protect Scotch, but actually it stifles innovation. It stops innovation. Yeah. So in England, we don't have those strict rules. We do have rules, and we have to stick to the 3-year rule and oak and things like that. But we can also experiment a little bit more, and I think that is exciting.
But probably something that changed, you think, I don't know, it's my thought, of course, it's the internet. I mean, before the internet, you had to actually go to the distillery or wait for a big event to meet people who actually do whiskey. Now, everybody, you are quite approachable. social media, Facebook, internet, websites. Actually, probably people are more informed, but because it's easier to get an information. Before, it was not that easy.
And I think also we're not frightened of other people in the industry knowing what we're doing. You know, we want to share our knowledge and our experience, because anybody who takes a step and do what we do, we want them to be like-minded and make the best possible effort to make a great product. My concern in the future is that people see the sector as being a growing sector and they come into it for the wrong reasons. You know, we're in this sector because we really want to make a very tasty whiskey. It's all about the product. It's all about this. It's not about making money. It's about making a really great product. And I think when you have a growing area or a growing industry, other people come into it from completely the wrong angle, and they try, you know, and that's what would damage the quality of English whiskey. Or so I think we're in a bit of a vulnerable place at the moment, but hopefully we can share our knowledge.
For example, I think about what they're doing. They are going to recreate Rosebank. They are going to recreate Port Ellen, which maybe they will do a great whiskey. I have no idea. But the fact that you have to, you know, go to an old label that doesn't exist anymore, and you will never be able to recreate that. It's just impossible.
No.
You're doing it only for marketing reason. I mean, you people love Rosebank because you love the idea of Rosebank.
It's the name.
It's the name. I'm gonna make you a new Rosebank, which actually won't be Rosebank.
No, but completely different.
Absolutely, yes. But I hope so also. Okay, which brings to another question, which is this one.
Okay, I think again we've probably just touched on it now, but so I think the smaller distilleries or the new distilleries have the flexibility to try different things, and particularly in England. I think UK as a whole, I mean, Scotland at the end of the day have a set of rules and they stick to them. And I think they've almost got themselves backed into a corner where they can't innovate, whereas we can. So I think the future for English whiskey is very, very bright. I think it's great that it's hands-on, it's crafted and made. Everything we do by hand, you know, we every knob in the distillery is a manual sort of setting. We nose and taste all the cut points. None of it is. We're not making commodity. We're making a batched product which has everything we put into it, basically. And I think as long as you go down those principles and don't try and push it into a commodity marketplace where you're making masses of blends and they're all the same, and if they're not quite the same, you add colour to make it the same. As long as we avoid that, then I think the future for certainly English whiskey is very bright. So I think the artisanal or the craftsmanship is there inherently in all of us, and we just need to make sure that the customers understand that.
Yes, even because always everything is connected. Of course, you hear me, right? You can hear me. Okay, everything is connected. I believe that, for example, after the lockdown, what I told you before, it's becoming more and more important for the small distilleries. Because, I mean, like 10 years ago, as we said before, a small distillery would have had a big difficulty to get noticed because they had no way. Either you had a lot of money to spend in marketing, or you just were closed to your very small market. While now, it's all about marketing, but it's all about quality. If you just create a good product, then you will come out. Even if you're a small distillery, even if you don't have the massive production that the big distillery has, you still have a chance to say, okay, I'm doing a great job, so I can have people understand it. So it's different from the past. Now you have more chances to come out.
Yeah, and I think also you make a mistake if you try to replicate what they're doing in Scotland. Exactly. You know, you've got to be very confident of your own route and follow that route with passion. You know, it's not just the liquid in the bottle, but it's the people who've made it. And I think that passion has to come out. And the only way you do that is by embracing the community and bringing them to you. And you know, I've often said that if people have done a tour, here, and they've understood us and understand how we make our whiskey and what passion we put into it, they will always buy a bottle in the shop because they want part of it. They want to take home everything that we've created, not just the liquid, but the whole community, if you like.
Yes, all that there is behind the liquid, all the history, the work, the people, because actually who you are, your personal history, in a way, it's inside that bottle, in a way, because that's what makes it different from any other whiskey. Now I have the last written question, which is this one about Brexit and COVID-19, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, very poignant, obviously, question, and there's still a lot of unknowns. I think the beauty of our size of distillery and the fact that it's a small team is that we've been able to be very flexible and react quickly. So we've embraced new technology, and we've done the Zoom tastings. We've done weekly distillery Facebook projects. So we'll talk about the whole. I think we've done 12 of them, talking about from the field to the bottle. So the first one was all about farming, and the last one was all about the end, one of the end products. So we've been able to embrace that quickly, and we've been able to be flexible. In terms of the lockdown, again, it comes back to the fact that we were able to continue production because there's only 2 of us here, and we don't need a big team because we understand how everything works. So that was very positive. I think dare I say, it's actually been a very positive thing for online sales. A lot of people have been sitting at home and buying into the story and buying products, so that's been really positive. And the more worrying thing for me is Brexit, because we just do not know how that is going to affect the functionality of our business in terms of what extra paperwork do we need to do to get product into, what labeling do we need to do, are there going to be any tariffs, are we going to fall out? And I think that's more worrying, dare I say, than COVID, because we just do not know what the future holds and how the trade deals will develop. Saying that, I'm at the moment, I am concentrating on Europe in terms of opening markets, but we're also concentrating on the rest of the world. And we need to be mindful of the fact that we can talk to the rest of the world quite openly, and we can start to do our own trade deals with them. So we've just got to be flexible, and we've got to wait and find out exactly what the future holds for Europe trade. But the bottom line is, we still drink champagne, we still drive BMWs, and hopefully you'll still drink whiskey. So
yes, of course.
I'm sure we will get on, and I'm sure we'll find a way.
Yes. And that's not a writing question, but it came to me. When I talked to Dario, it was very nice because he was very passionate about whiskey, about the products, but you can feel, because we talked even about all the distributors and all the labels he wanted to take, but in the end didn't get it. Because he said, I'm looking for a personal relationship with the companies I want to work with. Because I don't want just to work for a label. I just want to know and feel the whiskey. That's important even from your side. I mean, in Italy, you're working with Cuziol and with him. But in other countries, you're looking for something like that? Or?
Yeah, totally. I build up a personal relationship with the companies we are either doing business with or looking to do business with. For me, business is done between people. And if you have that connection, they understand, whiskey doesn't sell itself, and your distributor has to understand not just your product, but your ethos, your background, your production techniques. He has to be able to tell that story to sell your product. So you only do that by meeting face to face and spending time with each other, just to make sure that you're on the same level. So yes, even in this day and age with restricted travel, it's so important we keep that channel open, and we keep developing our own personal relationships as well as the brand relationship. And if you do that, then great. I mean, I will never let my brand into the hands of somebody I've never met, and I wouldn't let my brand into the hands of somebody who doesn't understand it. Yes. So it's educational, but it's also working together and appreciating each other's issues and problems, and together, I'm sure, then you've got a stronger, trading relationship.
Yes, I believe what you said. Yes, that you both are small. You're a small distillery. They are, at least in whiskey, a small distributor, at least for what concerns whiskey. But together, that being small becomes being greater in a way.
Yeah, it is. And I think, one of my concerns is if you pick a distributor, for example, like La Maison de Whisky in France, if you pick somebody like that, basically they're the ones who are leading, and they're the ones who you've got to sort of jump into their their ways of thinking. I'd much rather work with a smaller business who we are a big player in their portfolio rather than we are just a small player in a big portfolio. And I think we can build it organically, slowly, together, understand what the market needs and wants, and react quickly. So that's my route to market is finding people who really understand what we're doing, and we will go out to Italy when we can. We'll be at the shows. We'll be going out for evening meals with Dario and chatting whiskey and chatting about the world. Because that's how you build long-term relationships.
Yes, exactly. And I hope I will have a chance to meet you in person in that case.
Yeah,
of course.
Totally.
when we'll be able to. Okay, for me, that's it. I don't know if you want to add something that you wish to say to the Italian people.
No, I mean, it's really exciting to put something that we've made into Italy. I mean, Italy, in terms of whiskey, is a very mature whiskey market. There's a lot of people who understand whiskey. But we also want to open the whiskey door to people who perhaps have never tried it.
Yep.
So, a lot of our whiskies are based around very light, fruity, easygoing sort of styles. And I think that's, yes, there is something of heavier nature for the more experienced whiskey drinker, but we want to open whiskey to the world. And certainly in Italy, I think you love your food, you love your drink, and I think it's a superb market for us. And we'll be there to support it with Dario and Cusiol moving forward. So hopefully, guys, you'll see it behind the bars in the next few months and years, which is great.
Hey, absolutely, yes. Now, I believe, yes, the market, it's funny because probably Italy is more than ever more open to whiskey. But if you think about the general population, they still bear the idea that whiskey, what you said before, that whiskey is for old men and whiskey is for rich people also.
Yeah.
Because, for example, we had, ads from TV ads from the 80s about Chivas Regal, which I know, I mean, it's Chivas Regal, come on. But if you saw the ads, they were something like that, where you would see elegant and rich people saying, oh, we are going to the home of my friend. What should I bring? I bought Chivas Regal. Oh, great. That's right. I mean, come on, it's Chivas Regal. Come on. But anyway, the message they wanted to pass is that whiskey is something very expensive, very elegant for smart people.
Yeah.
So that's a way...
Yeah, which is wrong in lots of ways.
Absolutely.
We're completely the other side and trying to make it open to as many people as possible. I mean, we're not producing a cheap product, but we're producing a really high quality product, which is hopefully at a price point which is accessible to many more people. And if you want to build a brand, you can't be super premium in price, but not super premium in quality,
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You can't have both.
No, indeed. But still, in the people mind, probably they have the idea. It's funny because that message that passed that, okay, whiskey is something expensive, but if you tell them, okay, I just bought this bottle of whiskey, which is, 60 euros. 60 euros, are you crazy? What are you talking about? Because they still think about wine. Because a good bottle of wine is like 20 euros, 25 maximum, a good one.
Yeah.
So they still think that the whiskey, a good whiskey should cost around 20. That's fair. but actually, you know, if you go to the supermarket, you actually see whiskeys that cost 20 because of Johnny Walker or stuff like that. But yet, you know, you have this difference because okay, it's expensive for rich people, but yet it has to cost very little. So that's what the general population think.
Yeah, and I think also we've got to try and get people to understand how to drink whiskey. And that's an educational process. You know, it's not like wine. It's not like you're going to drink a glass of whiskey or 2 or 3 glasses of whiskey a night. It is very much more of an experience rather than a means to get drunk. So,
exactly.
you know, and it is that educational process of how you go about understanding and appreciating the flavors and the flavor layers and profiles in each whiskey. And you do that if you understand how it's made. So we have to tell people how it's made before they start to really appreciate the flavor profile that you're actually creating.
Exactly. And from my point of view as a blogger of whiskey, what I always try to say to people, okay, I write reviews of whiskey, I even given a vote, but because people, they want a vote. I don't want to give a vote, but people, they need it because they want to know, okay, tell me, how good is it? That's it. But actually, I always say it's a personal experience. I find that this whiskey is good, is giving me this sensation. You drink it, it will give you different sensation. You will find it crap. I have no idea. What I write is just I try to give you my impression so you can have something to compare with. But it's not an actual review. It's an opinion.
Yeah, and I think I'm always cautious of putting too much information in tasting notes because of that. Exactly. Because, you know, if I say, oh, there's pineapple, and you give it to a person who's never tasted pineapple,
exactly,
how on earth does he relate to that? So I think we tend to, on our tasting notes, talk about style, so fruity, you know, citrus, things like this, rather than specifics, because you need to have had those experiences in other things before you understand what we're talking about. Exactly. So and the water, the ice, all of that debate, personal preference. You know, we never prescribe that you should drink our whiskey in any one way. It's down to you as an individual. Yeah.
Exactly. But that's harder to understand, you know, because people, in a way, they still need guidance.
Yes, they do need guidance. Yeah.
Because at the beginning, for example, in my reviews, I didn't put a vote, but they said, "Why am I not putting a vote? I need a vote." Okay, I would give you a vote, whatever. But really, it doesn't matter. I mean, for example, I have because I have the blog in Italian, then I made an Instagram account where I write in English. So basically, they're the same review in English on Instagram. I don't give a vote because at least in Instagram I can take away the vote because that's the way. I just give you my impression. It's not a review. It's not something written in stone. Exactly. Which, when you're talking about wine, that doesn't happen on wine, for example, because on wine, the people they are not giving opinions. They're giving actual facts. This is good. This is bad. That's it. You can smell whatever, and that's it. You have to trust me. That's it. If you don't agree, if you don't feel it, it's just because you don't understand the thing. So okay.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Okay, I kept you enough. Thank you very much. It was
That's
really...
okay, Lamberto. I enjoyed it. Not a problem.
Okay, it was very nice.
We will hopefully meet soon too. Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so in the very near future. Okay, thank you again, and thank you to all you people.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, ciao.